Welcome to my channel. In today's video we're gonna go over the best runes and best builds for YASUO in Season 15. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you catch the next videos. I recently hit Challenger with 1174 LP on the EOS server, so I'm quite experienced in the game. First of all, let's go over runes and what to take in what scenarios. This is my favorite rune page out of all the runes in the game. Overall, the scaling is amazing. Trading is also really nice with this, and you have extremely good sustain with biscuits and second wind, plus the grass procs. The downside with this page is you lack attack speed from alacrity, and it's better for short trades than long trades. You also will need to build 2 attack speed items to make this one work, so you get your Q fully stacked. This page is amazing into DPS champions like Irelia and Silas that will jump on you and DPS you and be in your face, because then you will be able to proc your lethal tempo while hitting them, and bone plating will be amazing in the start of the trade, so you take way less damage. It also has decent scaling, not the best compared to the grasp, but it's decent, and it allows you to win the early skirmishes that you need to win the game. I like Triumph here instead of Absorb of Life because it's going to be a lot of fighting, most likely, when you're playing Lethal Tempo. So Triumph will be overall the better pick here. Absorb of Life is generally better if you're playing against more pokey type champs. Last line is very nice with Lethal Tempo because after 6 hits your champion is probably low, so when you're fully stacked on Lethal Tempo your health is gonna trigger the damage bonus from Last Stand, which is very nice. This rune page is amazing into mages and AD carries. The reason why this is good is because you have decent sustain but also a lot of mobility, so you can go for short trades and then run out, or you can stick to the targets way easier. I love Fleet because it helps me dodge abilities against the mages, and it's very easy to just dance around them as YASUO. Plus it synergizes really well with your passive, so you have your passive a lot more in the lane. One thing you can do, and which I do a lot nowadays, because I don't rush boots that often, is I trade Resolve. This is nice, but I trade Resolve for magical footwear and biscuits. Biscuits is nice because you can control when you want to sustain. So if you're taking a fight and you have a couple biscuits, all of a sudden you're way healthier than the enemy thought you would be. And magical footwear gives you some extra movement speed later into the game, which is also very nice to reach when you want to reach ranged comps. But yes, you give away the ability to rush boots, but I think that's completely fine when you have this page. Now we're gonna go over the items. I'll tell you what to build and when. Yuntal recently got a huge buff for melee champions, so you can stack it way faster. This makes the item extremely good for scaling. The problem is it's early game. If you can get through the early game without losing too much, it's the best mid to late game item you can have. The passive on the item is quite great, and the crit stacking is also amazing for YASUO. The problem is the components. So if the early game is bloody and you have to fight a lot, I don't recommend this item. But if you can play a bit more for the scaling part, I think this is a great item you should build a lot of the time. I think Yuntal synergizes really well with Stridebreaker. Also, I am a huge Stridebreaker enthusiast. Like, I build Stridebreaker most of my games because I love the passive of the item. I love that it gives me attack speed, and also it allows me to do different boots than Berserkers. And the reason for that is because Berserkers are the worst boots in the game currently, after countless nerfs. And I think Swifties, when you're building these 2 attack speed items, Swifties are a great option because you have so much mobility. You have your passive up and you can run away and chase people so much easier, and you basically fly around the map, and macro becomes also a lot easier. So you do Yuntal first, and then you take Stridebreaker second. Then you can decide if you need more defense stats and go for Shield Bow, or you can do IE. I think IE is amazing if you have setup on your team, and you don't need the defense stats that much. If you lack a bit of setup and they have a lot of burst champs on the enemy team, I would recommend Shield Bow. Then of course I think it really depends on drafts later. When you come to like 4th and 5th item, maybe you need armor pen and you do Lord Doms. You could also do lifesteal and take BT, or you can go more tank oriented. You can do YASUo or yeah, something else entirely. It depends a lot on what you need. But as of right now, I would say this is like the core YASUO build. A lot of people might disagree with me here, but I think this is probably the best one. Now I'm gonna talk a bit about Bruiser YASUO, which is like very dear to my heart because I actually got Challenger just playing Bruiser YASUO recently. And the reason why I like this build a lot is because it makes you extremely tanky, but your damage is still good, and you also have very nice mobility. It allows you to split push extremely well. It does lack damage, and that's the main issue with it. And I also only built Bruiser YASUO before the crit buff. So now that the crit buff is in place, I don't think pure Bruiser YASUO is the way to play anymore. Even though I still think it works, and I still think it can be good if you're really lacking setup and frontline. If you have no frontline, very little setup, then maybe Bruiser YASUO is the way to go. This is the build. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about a build I don't build very often, but if I'm playing against a shit ton of tanks, they have a lot of armor and HP, then this is a very nice build to go. What you do want is double on-hit items with Lord Doms or Mortal Reminder, depending on if they have a lot of healing. This will shred tanks, and you will get your crit passive into the 3rd and 4th item, which is also very nice for the armor pen. I do recommend either having Grasp or Lethal Tempo when doing this build. Fleet doesn't really feel that good into tank comps, so Grasp or Lethal Tempo. Most likely Grasp. I do like Grasp more into tankier champs. But this build, very nice into tanky comps. Pretty glass cannon, but it works really well DPS wise. This next build is quite interesting and is something I build here and there, not very often, but also works very well into certain comps. If you're playing against mages and they have, for example, a Fiddlesticks jungle, right? They have a shit ton of CC and high magic damage, then I would recommend building Wit's End and having Mercs. With Kraken Slayer as well as the first item, then Wit's End and then Mercs. And then you do a Shield Bow or, yeah, Infinite Edge or whatever you need later on for the crit passive. I think this is a very great way of countering the high CC and the high magic damage, and keeps me alive a lot of the time. But I also have decent damage though. It's an on-hit build, so you do like the crit passive early, but I think it's worth to sacrifice that for the survivability and the DPS that this build provides. But yeah, as I said, like, I don't build it very often, but it's very nice into specific scenarios. I'm just gonna go quickly over the 3 most common first items and why you should build them. Kraken Slayer for early game, best components by far, it's not even close. Very nice when you get the item, it has very good power. Bork, extremely good into tanks and bruisers. I personally don't like Bork that much compared to Kraken because of the lack of attack speed. Kraken gives 15% more attack speed, and it allows me to do other boots than Berserkers, because as I said earlier, Berserkers are trash at the moment. But yeah, Bork, very nice into tanks and bruisers. And then Yuntal, very nice for scaling. So Kraken for early game, Bork for tanks and bruisers, and Yuntal for scaling. This is gonna be the build for Kraken Slayer. I do, as I said, really like Stridebreaker and Swifties, so this is gonna be like the standard early game build for me. Of course, there's a lot of different types of builds that I haven't talked about quite yet. Like you can swap out certain items yeah, mix around. You can do the basic Berserker rush into Bork, into Shieldbow Infinity Edge. These types of builds works fine. I personally am not a huge fan of it because it does include Berserkers. But these are viable builds as well into whatever you need them to be. So those are viable as well. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying these are the builds I like to play with and mess around with. And also, of course, I do swap around the builds from time to time. So, and of course, like patch notes can come and different items do get changed and buffed and nerfed. So this is for right now, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are wondering about something, make sure to leave a comment and I'll try and answer as many comments as possible. If you have any questions around surrounding builds, runes, or whatever that I didn't mention. Also, if you want coaching, I do more specific coaching just for you. You can send me a Discord message. Discord link will be down below, so you can join my Discord. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, make sure to sub, and I'll see you guys in the next one.